Hello everyone, today you see me in a new studio courtesy of our friends at Lemon and Lime Interiors, so it's very different. So for the eagle eyes amongst you might think, where's she gone to? Same place, different sofa, different chair. Anyway, today's guest is somebody that reached out to me after seeing one of my podcasts called Paul Nash. Now Paul's story is very, very raw, unique, and one that touches people that are too afraid to talk about. But his story is one of recovery, resilience and growth. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce Paul Nash.
Hello,
Paul.
Having me, Angie.
You're very welcome. So I obviously know your story from conversations we've had, but if we can take you right back to your childhood, if we may, and then we'll just sort of amble along with the story.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So I was born with dislocated hips and they were corrected at probably the age of about 2 when I was in a full body cast. So I was in hospital over Christmas. So I was born in Chelsea in Westminster Hospital, and I got to meet the Chelsea football team. There's pictures of that. I got to meet Tony Blair, the emergency services, because with children's hospitals they tend to visit over Christmas, and I don't remember any of that, but there are pictures of that. So takes then to around the age of 10, so I went to Japan. And my dad's job took him there, so myself, my brother, and him both all went to Japan for 2.5 years. Sadly, my mum, she couldn't join us because she has multiple sclerosis. So for those who may not know much about multiple sclerosis, it's a condition that affects your joints, and it, particularly with the heat would have affected her.
Right, okay.
Japan as a country is notoriously very warm most of the time.
So would you say that that was, at the age of 10, a pivotal moment for you?
It wasn't really a decision that I had.
No.
So it wasn't a decision I could make. It was, looking back on it, it was the best decision for my mum not to come, sadly, because the heat would have affected her, and we don't know what impact that would have had on her condition, multiple sclerosis. So I think it was a turning point. So when we went to Japan for that 2.5 years, I started gaining weight and I became quite overweight. And it wasn't that I wasn't exercising, because I was. It was definitely the type of food that I started eating. So we were part of something called an American club. So in Japan, we went to a British school. There's very few international schools in Japan. There's 2 that I was aware of when we were there, which is British school in Tokyo and one called the American school. And we went, all of us, we were taught in English, but we did learn Japanese, and we did go out, and we were there for 2.5 years. So I spoke at better Japanese than my brother, the Japanese teacher, said. But my brother could write a lot better than me.
So do you know any Japanese now or not?
I know the basics.
Oh, okay.
So I can probably say konnichiwa, genki desu ka, which is hello, how are you, sayonara. I can count a few numbers.
I'm only asking because I'm going in 2 weeks' time.
Oh wow!
To Japan, so it's quite off camera. I'll have to give me a few tips.
No, it's an incredible country, and it was an incredible experience as well. So with my food and dieting out there, at that age, I wasn't really conscious of what I was eating.
No.
But we'd often go to the American club. It was an American club which had everything. It was like a leisure centre, and it was you had to pay for a membership each year. So I would eat the wrong type of food, and I'd still be being active, but
we were 10.
I wouldn't be conscious
eat
of what I was
burgers
eating.
and anything, can't you?
That's
Chips,
what I was
burgers,
doing.
the lot.
I was eating absolutely everything. And anything, and I wasn't reflecting on what I was eating, because at that age, why would you? Why wouldn't you just eat whatever you like? And sushi is an incredible food, and one thing that I don't have with sushi is wasabi. So wasabi is a spice that is on every single food in Japan. But when we had to go to a sushi place, every time I ordered, we had to say no wasabi.
Okay.
So I was the only one that wouldn't eat the wasabi. My brother and my dad did.
Nice.
So
you did Japan.
Yeah.
3.5 years. So you came back at what? 13 and a half?
Yeah. So we were there for 2.5 years. And then when we came back, I went back to the private school I was at before.
Yep.
I went back there for about a year. And it's quite funny because I do a lot of acting, or I did a lot of acting and a lot of singing. And I've been in musicals. So in Japan, I was in a musical called Bugsy Malone. And I was the character Fizzy. And then when we came back, I was at the private school. I also played Fizzy in Bugsy Malone, so it was back to back. And I used to get severe anxiety before I used to go on stage. So I used to be backstage before the show would start. And when I had to go on, I would just have a breakdown.
Yeah.
I'd just start shaking. I would get really upset. I would start crying, things like that. And the worst time that I ever had this fear of going on stage was the Bugsy Malone in England.
Yeah.
I remember I missed one of my cues because I was in such a state I couldn't go on. And it wasn't like I wasn't confident doing it, because I was confident doing it. It's just I had that anxiety.
You got ADHD?
Yes, I have ADHD, and I'm mildly autistic as well.
Yeah.
So you'll often see me throughout this fidgeting or playing with something, or just keeping myself busy.
My daughter's got it, and my husband has. So it's a superpower in our house.
Yeah.
It's not anything. I just wondered because obviously she's an actor, so.
I was lucky to be diagnosed quite early with that, so at birth almost. And I think recently my dad said, we had to fight for this diagnosis for you, because often when it comes to being diagnosed with autism and ADHD, at that, let's say 30 years ago, there wasn't much research into it. So you do have to fight for these things. And we were in a lucky position where my dad was in a very well-paid job, and he was able to take it to court. But Japan and me and my mum, and we were able to come back every half term, because it was part of my dad's contract that the company would pay for it. And we came back, we were lucky and fortunate enough to come back business class as well.
Nice.
So
I won't be going business class, that's for sure.
It's incredibly expensive, but we were fortunate
great
to do it. And I think everyone on that business class flight hated us, because me and my brother would be running up and down the aisle and shouting at each other and fighting just on the airplane, because that's what we would do. And I think it really tested my dad's patience.
That's what kids do.
Yeah, it's about a 12-hour flight. Can't be short. So.
Oh, don't worry, I'll be drinking. Anyway, so moving on to, so you're back in England, and I believe you were into sports. Was that your plan, to do sports?
So sport has always been something that I've always done, even though I've been incredibly overweight. And when we came back from Japan, I wasn't at my heaviest, but rugby was one of the sports that I was particularly interested in, and still am. But I went back to the rugby club that I used to play for. Yeah. And cricket is another big sport of mine, and cricket's something that I've played, I've umpired, I've scored, I've done everything you can do in cricket, and I still do. And I play disability cricket for my local county, which is Sussex, and I also play and captain my local village cricket team. So I'm from West Sussex, a town called Hayward Heath. So I play for a village called Linfield and have done for a few years. And I like encouraging anyone to play for me because I don't want anyone to feel left out like I have been.
Like you had been.
Last.
So before you go on to your cricket thing, at the age of 13 to be told you're too big, that's one hell of a...
It is, and I was quite emotional about it because I was thinking to myself, I'm looking on the TV and I'm thinking, look at all of these players, look at the size of them. I knew my weight wasn't a problem before we went to Japan, but when we came back I was a lot heavier, but I would have been a good player in the scrum, I think.
They wouldn't get away with that now.
No.
Would they? That's different times.
It's almost comes down to them discriminating against
of course,
me. But there would have been things that I could have done if it wasn't played for them. For example, I could have refereed, I could have helped out behind the bar.
So where did you go, well, mentally and physically, where did you go from there then, from the rugby club?
So I was obviously playing sport at school, and I haven't played rugby since, but when I was playing sport at school, I was often the last person picked because I wasn't I've never been the best at sport, so I've never been the quickest player, I've never been the hardest hitter or anything like that, but I've always played it because sport is something that anyone can do. For me, I don't care what anyone says, there is always something that you can do to adjust.
I agree.
So someone that in a wheelchair can play, for example, they can always do something, or they can always be encouraged to play sport.
I think it's very fair to say we live in a very different society now, where discrimination, I'm sure that it still happens, but I think that what you experience is probably what the majority of people experience. That you know, not everyone can be, that, you know, there'll be a percentage, won't there, I'm sure. You know, not everybody is there to be like a grade A student or a sports fanatic, but you give it a go.
And I'll always do that. I don't care if I win or lose, I'll always give it a go. Like cricket, for example, I've been through good periods of captaincy where we've won a lot, but I've also been through periods where we've lost every game. And the reason we've lost every game is because you're putting, in the fourth team, which is the lowest team for Linfield, you're putting a lot of the juniors in that team with no experience, and they're going up against 11 adults who have played for 20 years, and I can't expect any more from them, which I don't expect any more from them. But we've been relegated and we're now in the lowest division, but that is a division that we're competitive at. These players we're introducing them to cricket, adult cricket.
So I think you're very resilient, aren't you? I think that's what's shining through there.
Yeah, I think I have always been resilient. So I've often been told I can't do this. For example, at college, I went to college. I came out of my GCSEs with having passed one GCSE, which was GCSE music. I got a C. And drama, I missed one mark to get a C, and I hadn't got maths and English. I've since got my GCSE maths, but that took about two goes at it. And I went to college and I was asked to do a level 2 course, a BTEC level 2 course, sport level 2 course. And that was when I found almost my calling. So my calling was coursework, because coursework you can do over a period of time. Exams you have to study for, and studying isn't what I do very well. I'm very good at putting things off, very good at procrastinating and doing everything but what I should be doing. So sport, I did BTEC sport level 2, and I was often told by one of the teachers that I was closest to that, and I don't fault him for this, because he was only going on his experience with me, and he said, you're not going to be successful at level 3 with BTEC. So I did the BTEC. I did my BTEC level 2, and I got a distinction star, and that was a real confidence boost for me, because I'd gone from 1 GCSE to having however many GCSEs a BTEC counted at that time, and I think it was about 4. And again, he said, level 3, you're not going to get to university because you're not very good at doing things practically, or trying to do things practically. I'll always give anything practical a go. And BTEC level 3 happened, and I came out of it with a distinction merit, which is one of the higher grades. I think you got distinction star, distinction, and then distinction merit. So it's the third highest grade, and it was something, again, I was incredibly proud of.
I bet. Yeah.
And going to university was, and having to do an honours degree. I chose to do an honours degree because I could, because I had that choice, and I was incredibly proud that I could do that. But it was incredibly overwhelming for me.
So what did you do at university? What were you studying?
I did sports coaching, BSc sports coaching and physical education. So that's what I initially signed up to do. It was a very overwhelming experience for me, because I'd gone from having to do nothing for myself, things like cook for myself, things like do my own laundry, the basic adult things. I'd gone from having to do none of that to having to do everything and budget my student loan and things like that.
That's probably what most of the people
exactly. It's what everyone had to do, but I had to do none of it before going. And especially budgeting, I wasn't in the luxurious position where, when we came back from Japan, the reason we came back was my dad lost his job.
Right.
And we came back, and we've lived on benefits for the majority of it.
Okay.
Since we don't have the money we used to have available to us. And
when your dad lost his job, did you carry on at your private school though?
We carried on for a year.
Okay.
So we came back for a year, and then I went to a state school, public school. I went to a faith-based Catholic college in Burgess Hill, and I'm glad that I went there, because in a private school, a lot of it is money orientated, and everyone is incredibly wealthy and well off. And going to that state public school, even though it was a Catholic school, it was almost that realization of not everyone has money, and people were still quite wealthy at this Catholic school. It's just that different. It was almost normalization. So I'd gone from having the view that everyone has all this money to, no, we don't have any of this money. Yeah. And I'm pleased, and that was a big.
I would say that was a now what moment.
Yeah, it was a big moment, and it was a big turning point for me, where we came back, and I was pleased that I went to that state school, because it was. Can
I take you back to the realization that your dad had lost his job, and you were leaving that school, and you were going to be going to a normal school? Did you have any overwhelming sense of anything, or are you one of those people that just resilient and just got on with it?
To be honest with you, I was of such a young age. What could I have done?
At 13. Yeah. Now, I'm not saying that you could do anything, but it still has a dramatic effect on you.
It does, yeah. And I remember it being the last day that we were out there, and that last day at that school, and it was an incredible country, and I'd love to go back and visit when I'm a bit about now, to be honest. I would be happy to go back anytime now, because I can then go to that country and explore myself.
Yeah, of course.
Because before, I could only do what the school was doing. I couldn't go off on my own. Well, I could have done, but I don't think that would have been a good decision for me to make.
But I think that when you are in that environment and then you come out of it, then go to a local, I presume it was local, was it?
Yes, it was
so a local school. So did you gain friends there? How was it with friendship groups at your Catholic school?
So friendship groups at the private school, to begin with, I've always been quite, not going to say I've always been well liked by a lot of people. So a lot of people have always been friendly to me, and I can't say I've ever struggled making friends. Yes, I'm different, and yes, I'm mildly autistic and ADHD, but I can't say I've ever used that to stop me from making friends or anything. Yeah. But I'm very comfortable talking to people. I'm very comfortable putting people first, because I don't put myself first, apart from I'm going to go on to talk about when that has sort of changed and my mindset has changed. But I think it was very overwhelming for me, because I'd gone from being in Japan, being very secure, to coming back from Japan, not knowing what the next steps were. So I remember applying for a scholarship at school, at a private school, because that would have been the only way that I would have been able to stay there. And I didn't get the scholarship, but the reason I put it down to the fact that I didn't get it was because, again, my nerves got the better of me. I had that panic attack, and I didn't used to have those panic attacks in Japan. So something obviously did change, but I can't put my finger on.
The problem is you won't be able to, unless you went really deep down and explored where you were at that point. You don't know, but obviously because of the type of nature you are a sort of a roll your sleeves up and you will just get on with it. And in a lot of ways, that's your coping mechanism, to be honest.
Yeah.
Because that is a huge thing to go from there to there. And not be affected by it. But we digress, because I think actually there are more things that have overtook that part of you. So obviously you've gone to university. We're going to skip past your school now. So you've gone to university and you are in your course. Then
so I started on the BSc Honours, as I just mentioned, sports coaching and physical education in Anglia Ruskin University in the Cambridge campus, and that was as I said before, it was very overwhelming for me, because I've not done any of life. I've not done any of those skills. I've not built any of those skills myself. So I, with the help of friends at university, I made the decision to join one of my friends on the foundation year. Closest friend that I'm probably still closest to. He's been the longest person that I've been he wasn't the first person I met at university, but he was one of, and he said, come and join me on the foundation year. So I did, and the foundation year was basically a course where it was a year long, and you would study maths, chemistry, biology, nothing to do with sport, but it was basically a course that introduced you to university. And for people that haven't been to university, for me, it turned from a 3-year course into a 4-year course. And one thing that happens at university is your first year is known as you get 40% and you just pass that. You don't need to get any more than that. So I had 2 first years with the foundation year and the first year of my honours degree. And again, that was the 40% year, and that was, let's just do that. Let's go out 3-4 nights a week, which is what I was doing. And I used to work in nighttime promotion. So I used to work for a student union event.
You're still big then?
Yeah. And I was big. So between when I went to Japan and to the age of 30.
Right, okay.
So
sorry, I've digressed there. So I was trying to work out.
Okay,
so you're on your so you're doing nighttime promotions, having a good time, really, out there, living the university life.
Living the dream, to be honest. If
good.
You like,
that's my words.
Again, it was a job that I was popular in. Like, yes, people would say, and I was popular not because I was good at what I was doing, but to be brutally honest, I was popular because I got perks. Free entry. I got things like that, and free bottles of alcohol and things like that. And That first year of university, that overwhelming time for me, I started gambling.
Okay.
And I gambled. The first bet that I'd ever put on sport was probably when I was 19. And it was a £5 accumulator that I put down. And I won about £450 on it. And I said to myself, what are you doing? Why are you not doing this more often? You're literally associating sport with making money, and all you're doing is you would watch the sport anyway. So all I'd be doing is making it more exciting. That's how I considered it at the time, and it made it a lot more exciting watching it, because
when you got skin in the game.
Yeah, because then I thought to myself, let's carry on doing this. What could be the harm in doing it? And sport gambling for me was where my interest was. Yes, I'd go to the casino very occasionally. Yes, I'd gamble on the slots. I gambled on the national lottery between 16 and 19. The reason I wasn't addicted to it was because I could go without betting on it.
Did you say 16 to 19?
Yes, as soon as I could,
right,
I would gamble. I would spend on the national lottery. But the reason I wasn't addicted to it at that point was because I could go weeks, if not months, without gambling on it. And it wasn't at the forefront of my brain.
Yeah.
When I started gambling on sport, that's when it became my priority. My priority wasn't anything else apart from that sport gambling. And yes, at university I was limited to how much I could gamble, because it would be dependent on
how much you earned,
how much money I had available to me. But what I could do is I could work a lot more.
Yeah.
And it probably did affect my studying when I was at university, but I don't regret that, because at the end of the day, me going to university was an accomplishment in itself. And I came out of university with a second class honours, a 2-2. And considering I didn't think I would do well at university, and the teacher I was closest to also said, I don't think this is going to work very well for you. But I didn't fault him. I don't blame him. I don't fault him for that. That inspired me. And those are the sort of things that inspire me to
keep going,
to give back, and to do what I'm doing by...
Well, also to keep going, really.
Yeah, to prove that person wrong, and to say to them, I don't normally prove myself wrong. I don't normally prove myself wrong. I've been to university, but I don't say something to myself and go, I want to overcome this. I say something I hear other people saying, you can't do this, you can't do that. And I say, okay, I'm going to show you I can do it.
Yeah.
Because I'm going to prove to myself I can. And I'm going to prove to other people as well. And I'm I talk publicly about my gambling, right?
So with your gambling, if we can explore that, is that okay?
Yeah, of course.
So with your gambling, did you hide it from everybody, or did you think you hid it, but people could see it?
Gambling is known as a hidden addiction. So yes, so my friends from home, who I were around quite a lot, they wouldn't be aware as to the extent of what I was gambling, but they would know that I had a problem with my gambling addiction.
And did anybody talk to you about that, or was it of an era that you didn't?
They would often say, are you gambling? Things like that. And I would say no, because the problem with a gambling addiction and lying, that you lie and you manipulate people. And yes, I'm not doing it intentionally. At the time I was doing it intentionally, but reflecting on it, I'm thinking, I don't want to be this horrible person that is lying and manipulating everyone, but I don't have a choice. I mean, all of this debt. And
was it a lot of debt?
Over the course of my gambling, I was probably in debt of about £10,000. at time, at the lowest point, I was probably I said the lowest point, that wasn't the lowest point. At the most amount of debt I was in at one time, I would say, was about £3,000. And I said to myself, let's get the money through gambling to pay off all of this
And the
debt.
£3,000, you got no way to pay it back.
No. So what I used to do,
So even if it was £30, if you've got no way to get that back.
So what I used to do was at the time, you could gamble using credit cards and things like that. And they've since stopped that, thankfully. But I used to spend money on that credit card to gamble, whereas a credit card should be for expenditure that you're not expecting. I was expecting all of this expenditure because I was expecting to pay all of this money. But I remember
you're expecting to win.
Yeah. And every time I lost, the gambling companies, they don't chase your losses. So it comes back to my point of I'm going to prove them wrong. So I'm going to chase my losses.
Yeah.
And it's almost like
Is that like a byword, that don't chase your losses? Is that what they say to make themselves feel better?
Yes.
Because they've told people.
They're very clever with their marketing. So for me, it didn't really affect me, but being autistic and having an understanding of people with autism, I would say bright colours could really interest someone. Just one word on a piece of marketing material, or just a picture. All it takes is one person to go, hang on, I'm really interested in this colour.
Yeah.
Let's look into it a bit more. And once you look into it a bit more, they're then thinking, okay, they're offering me all of these promotions. Let's go ahead and go with one promotion. Not everyone becomes addicted.
The thing is, though, you've got the benefit of hindsight, haven't you, now, after being in it? So that's quite a... how long did your gambling last for?
About 10 years and 4 months.
Good God.
Yeah. So I'm relatively, with all the speaking work that I do in the industry and the opportunities that I get, that's relatively low. And I'm the second youngest person I've ever met that has gambled. A lot of people that gamble have been to prison because of gambling. Thankfully, I never resorted to going to prison. But I'll give you an example of when things should have changed and how I manipulated things like that. So I went to Mallorca with two of my best friends, and I went to surprise my best friend. And firstly, I only had enough money to spend on an aeroplane ticket. I didn't have anywhere to stay when I was going out there. I was only going there for a night, but I was only... So, embarrassingly enough for me, rather than me going, no, I can't come, I said, I'm going to go. So I went there, and I had to stay in the room with my best friend and his partner. And how can I not plan things enough when I was going through my gambling addiction? How can I not plan things enough that I could have got at least an Airbnb when I was out there? But
How old were you, Paul?
I didn't have the money.
How old were you?
So it was about I'm going to say probably 25, 26.
So you were working then?
Yeah, I was.
So you're working, earning money?
Yeah. So
what were you doing? What did you do for a living?
So I worked after university, I worked as a teaching assistant. And I worked as a teaching assistant for 6 months.
Okay.
And at the end of it, the job, I got sacked at the end of my probation. And the reason I got sacked was because fundamentally it came down to my punctuality.
Right.
The reason it came down to my punctuality was because I didn't have the work was the town next door to me, and I didn't have that money available. I didn't have that money to get public transport, and
Right.
it was a £3 train journey. And I said to my dad every day, I would say to him, Dad, can you give me a lift to work? Because it's easier for me. And he would say, you keep asking, why do you keep asking? And I would say, it's easier for me because it means that I'm being dropped off on the doorstep. It wasn't easier for me. It was easier for me, but that wasn't the reason. The reason was
Got no money.
I didn't have any money available to me. And yes, my mum and dad and friends knew that I was gambling, but they didn't know the extent of my gambling.
No.
Because the problem with gambling is when you gamble, you do it on your own. Often. You don't often do it when you're out with friends, although when you are out, and let's say you're watching Soccer Saturday or Super Sunday, for all the football viewers will know what I'm
I was going to say, I have no idea what that is.
The football viewers will know what I'm talking about when I say that. And that is when you'd be gambling, when you were out. Because
So what do you do? Is it on the phone? Is it?
So it was on my phone, and I wouldn't be gambling as much when I was out, because I'd be going, okay, I'm going to put down a £5 accumulator on all, and an accumulator is a number of results.
Right.
So it's not just one result. And when you put down that accumulator, you're banking on so many different results to come in. But the worse my gambling addiction got, the more different my accumulators used to be. So it started as win or lose bets. I'm going to bet on this team to win, this team to lose. And it then changed to how many corners are there going to be in each game. No one can predict that. So it then became things like how many cards there are going to be in the game. And when I was...
As in red card? Oh, okay.
Red card and yellow card, yeah. So there didn't used to be much available on Christmas Day. But on Christmas Day, every year I remember looking and thinking, hang on, there's some Saudi Arabian Football League I can bet on. I'm going to bet on that. I had no knowledge of the Saudi Arabian Football League. And it's a joke amongst friends. It's a joke amongst my friends that I would bet on the Norwegian women's volleyball. I had no knowledge of that. But the problem with gambling is you go based on the odds. Yeah. So if it's an odd of 1 to 10, that means essentially it should be winning. If it's an odd of 10 to 1, that is more unlikely. That is incredibly unlikely to win compared to a 1 to 10, because it's a 0.10 chance of winning if it's a 1 to 10.
So when you lost your job, that really should have been a wake-up call, but wasn't. Because how old were you at this point?
That was a now what moment, I'm going to say, because I had gone from wanting to be a teacher to them getting rid of me in that job.
Yeah.
Understandably, I don't fault them for getting rid of me, because I wasn't good enough to myself, and I wasn't good enough to them as an organisation. But I then started working. I then wanted to look at more opportunities and work on my organisational skills. So I then went and started working in the financial services sector.
Yeah.
So I worked in the financial services sector for about 8 years, and 7-8 years. And some of it started as me being a temporary member of staff, and then it led to a permanent position. The most responsible thing I did during that gambling addiction was I started off by being paid weekly. So once I got my money for the week, I would buy my train ticket to work. That's the most responsible thing that I ever did during the gambling addiction. And the reason I did that was because I thought to myself, this train journey is going to be an hour away from where you are at the moment. Your dad can't give you a lift. You can't be in the same position where you don't have that money available to you again. So it was almost like to be honest, I start reflecting on it. I think I manipulated myself into thinking, get this train ticket each week, because then you've got that money available to you to gamble with. And that
because you associated not having the money to get to work to the reason you lost your job.
Yeah, it was.
Which it was.
It was the reason, and
yeah.
I wasn't good enough when I was working as that teaching assistant. I wasn't good enough to the school. I wasn't good enough to. But I also don't regret them getting rid of me, because it's now led to me working in the financial services sector.
Yeah.
More recently, I now work in the public sector. So I work in mental health now, and supporting people with mental health challenges to find accommodation for them, and to also find outreach packages for them. So
before we go down what you do now, I need to
please
really explore
that's fine.
The gambling part of it.
Of course.
So you were in you obviously bought your train tickets, you were still gambling.
Yep.
How low did it go?
The £3,000 being in debt. So I was in debt with my overdraft, and I was also in debt with them giving me a credit card. So when the same creditor, I was in my student overdraft, I said...
And you were working in the student overdraft, not paying it, nothing?
No. And I knew that, so there was a 2-year gap between me having to pay interest on that and me having to clear it. So I said to myself, I need to get the full amount of money before I can clear it. So I continued to gamble. It was a revolving circle of, I've lost all this money gambling. I need to get that money back and pay off that to stop the interest from happening. That same creditor lent me a credit card. And yes, I cleared my overdraft in the end, but I cleared it. They knew I was having problems clearing it, but they chose to then give me the credit card. I'm not blaming them for this. I'm not pushing away responsibility. I was responsible for getting that credit card and taking up that overdraft. But the problem with creditors is some creditors don't monitor transactions as much as they should. If they monitor transactions, all it takes is for them to call a customer and say, I see because I used to do it working in the financial services sector. We used to have a process called open banking, which is where we got access to the last 3 months of someone's bank statements. And I would call them and say, or if colleagues of mine would have a customer that's gambling, they would say to me, what do I do with this customer? And I would
you were there gambling and not being able to...
And working in the financial services sector, probably the most eye-opening moment for me, I'm not blaming anyone for this, but it was the week of Cheltenham horse racing. And Cheltenham horse racing is... I didn't really used to gamble on horse racing.
Okay.
But during that Cheltenham week, my management that were around me, as well as colleagues, would say, look at all of these races, let's all bet on them. And
is it sweepstake or something?
We were watching the racing we were watching the racing, and I didn't think that would be encouraged, but it was encouraged. So that was a really eye-opening moment for me. But looking back on it, they didn't know I had an addiction. No one knew I had an addiction. Well, very few people knew I had this gambling addiction. Nobody knew how bad it got, and nobody knew how bad the gambling addiction was for me and how much I was actually spending on it. Probably over the course of my gambling, over the course of that just over 10 years, including what I won, which I don't consider it winnings anymore, but including what I'd won, I'd probably spent over £100,000
Wow.
on it, and it was. I wouldn't change it. I wouldn't want it to be any different because it's taught me a lot, and it's made me. You mentioned I'm very resilient earlier. It's made me a lot more resilient coming into recovery. I'm just over 3 years into recovery now, and
3 years, 4 days, I thought I've read somewhere.
yeah, it was 3 years, 4 days so it was the 15th of January. At 14th of January was my last ever bet. 15th of January was the first day I consider myself becoming clean.
So so on the 14th of January,
2023.
what changed?
Something incredibly simple happened. So I went into a bookmaker's, and I came out of that bookmaker's, and my friend saw me going in there, and it was one of my friends that was part of a group chat that I'm on.
And did they know? Did that person know?
He knew that they knew I had a gambling addiction.
Yeah.
They didn't know what extent it was. So he said in our group chat that we have, he said, I thought you weren't gambling anymore. And I then had a conversation with my best friend, and he called me, and I'd lied and manipulated them for just over 10 years. Yeah. And I'd said, oh, I'm out of debt. Oh, I'm out of this, and I'm out of that. And I wasn't out of debt. At that time, I was in debt of about £3,500. So that was the highest debt that I was ever in, £3,500. And he called me, and I said, I'm just out at the moment. I am still gambling. I'm going to go home shortly, not too long, shortly. And then I'll call you back, and we can have a conversation about what exactly has happened and just how bad things are for me. And that day I contemplated taking my own life because of the guilt and the shame around the hidden addiction I had for just over 10 years. So I went home, and the first thing I did was not call my best friend back. The first thing I did was, or over that short period, I was thinking, what am I going to do? What do I need to do? And how do I need to do it?
Yeah.
So I get home and I contact my employee assistance program at work, and I was on the phone to them for a little bit, and they said to me, we can't support you. You need too much help.
Oh my God.
And for companies like that, so
Wow.
A company like an employee assistance program, when someone reaches out to them with an addiction or with any problem for that matter, I don't care what the problem is. It could be
drinking.
It could be drinking. It could be marital disputes, things like that. It could be problems with children. They're meant to offer hope. They didn't offer hope. They offered a shut door.
Yeah.
Because they saw me as a problem. And then I reached out to the gambling helpline, GamCare, and GamCare.
So were you at home? Sorry, Paul. Yeah. Were you at home with your family?
I was at home. I was incredibly upset.
On your own?
I was
in the house?
I took myself to my room to have these conversations. And GamCare are the leading organisation and a national helpline for people who have a gambling addiction, and GamCare put me in touch with my local provider called Break Even. There's a provider in each area, so you've got Scotland, Wales, South East of England, London. Every region has a provider that can support someone. And Break Even contacted me the following day and said, let's support you, let's get you some counselling.
Pause. What happened in that day though? So you left home, you came off the phone to your friend, you went home contemplating turning left instead of right. And then where were your friends? I bet they were trying to get hold of you, or?
No, so they weren't trying to get hold of me because they didn't realise how bad things were.
Right, okay.
But after contacting GamCare and Break Even, I then called my best friend back, and my best friend, we had a conversation. We had a very honest conversation about everything, and I said just how bad things were. So the next thing I know, I'm driving to his house because his wife has said, come over, let's have a conversation, let's work everything out, and let's make sure that you're getting support.
Yeah.
So I went over, I spent time talking to them. Again, incredibly emotional, not because I'd felt like a failure again, and because I'd felt that I'd let everyone down, which that's how I felt at the time, and because I felt incredibly guilty and shameful of what I'd done and how manipulative I've been in that.
You know, when you say a
situation.
failure again, in whose eyes? Your eyes?
In my eyes, yeah. So
Right.
I always want to do better.
Okay.
So I always want to try and give everything I've got, which I always do, but I felt like a failure that I'd let something consume me.
Okay.
Just over 10 years. So after I'd left my best friend's house, the first thing I did was, and the hardest part of the whole thing, was messaging each and every one of my friends I'm close to and saying, I've had a gambling addiction for just over 10 years. I'm sorry for lying and deceiving you and manipulating everything that I have manipulated. And as soon as I'd done that, my heart was racing because it was like, what are they going to say?
You've opened the box
apologised
now.
and said sorry and everything. What more can I do? And each and every message I got back was, you don't need to apologise. At the end of the day, things consume you. I didn't choose to become consumed by gambling. I chose to place that first bet. I didn't choose to have gambling take over my life for just over 10 years. And that's what it did. But a few things happened that should have stopped me from gambling. So I'll go back to something that I was saying before about going to Mallorca and having so little money. I had to stay with my best friend and his now wife, and that was embarrassing for them,
of course,
but embarrassing for me. And they were so understanding of it, and they were like, don't worry about it, don't give us any money, anything like that. And something else that happened on that trip was we got a taxi to a circus in Magaluf. I'd been to Magaluf once before, but where they were staying wasn't near Magaluf, and it was in Mallorca, and went to a circus. And on the way back, I was going to the airport, but we were dropping them off home first, and I didn't have money to pay for the taxi. So my best friend, again, had to bail me out. And again, their level of understanding really is a testament to them.
Yeah.
But going back to that hardest part, which was being honest with absolutely everyone that I've been close to, as soon as they'd said, don't worry, let's focus on you going into recovery, that was so reassuring. And that was a turning point for me, because not one of them blamed me for having it. You can't blame someone for being addicted to gambling.
No.
You can. The caveat to that is, if you go into recovery and you then start gambling again, and you know what you're doing because you've already gone into recovery, there is an element of being able to say, okay, you obviously don't want to stop gambling.
There are your choices, aren't they?
But
Because that's a choice.
That is a choice, but then me placing that first bet was a choice that I made.
Yeah, yeah.
And if I had lost that first bet, would I have gambled for just over 10 years?
You don't know.
You can't say. But
Can I ask you a question? Sorry, I'm interrupting you.
no, please.
That's okay.
Please.
So you've told your friends. So are your mum and dad and your brother alive at this? Are they alive? Were they alive?
They're still
okay,
alive. So I've got one brother, one.
Well, your mum and dad and your brother.
I say one mum. I was about to say one mum.
Okay.
One brother, mum, and my dad.
So a lot of people would think, is it my parents would be the hardest or my family? You think it was your friends because you lied and manipulated to them. So
I was more manipulative to them because I would borrow money from them.
Oh, okay.
Whereas things like...
So you borrowed money from your friends?
I always paid it back.
Okay.
But with my family, I wasn't able to borrow that money.
No,
apart from my brother. And my brother, we have always lent each other money. And
so go back to, okay, so sorry, I didn't realise you'd borrowed money off your friends.
No,
so I can understand.
I didn't say so.
I can understand why then.
Yeah.
I couldn't quite understand, but anyway, okay. So your friends are great, as hopefully you'd expect.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that if it was you in their position, you'd be that person.
Yeah.
So then you had to go and tell your parents and your brother.
Yeah, family and my brother, and again, same.
Did you do it all in one go, or?
Same conversation we had. I mean, deep down they knew I was addicted to gambling.
Okay.
Just like everyone else did, but they didn't know to the extent of how much I was gambling.
And also, it's opening the box. I keep talking about Pandora's box.
It's opening that difficult conversation box, and that is what everyone struggles to do.
Yeah.
To have that difficult conversation. Something that I sort of say now is that the only way we're going to make these conversations easier are by having them. And it's the same with men's mental health and suicide particularly, because when it comes to mental health, men can learn a lot from women because women have conversations about mental health. Men don't have conversations because they see it as a weakness. And actually, the way that I see it now is men's mental health and having that conversation is probably more strength than anything. But I saw it as a weakness and a sort of criticism, because men don't want to be seen as being vulnerable, but everyone is vulnerable.
They are.
To anything. And I was vulnerable during my gambling addiction, but also 2022, which was a year before I overcame my gambling addiction, my dad was in a hell of a lot of pain. So we called 111. My mum's carer brought it to my attention. It was in all this pain. So we called 111 on the phone to him for about 12 minutes. And I hung up and said, "Dad, we're going to hospital. You've never been in this much pain. We're getting you to hospital." Hospital's 3 minutes from my house. And half a minute into that journey, he collapsed in my car. And he had a ruptured aneurysm.
Wow.
And getting him to hospital was my priority. It was either a split-second decision I had to make, collapsed in my car, it's a minute and a half to the hospital, or I call an ambulance. I chose to take him to hospital because he got access to support immediately there.
Yeah.
Whereas if it was an ambulance, let's be honest, you're probably going to be waiting 5 minutes, if not longer, for him to be there. Even if it's a code red situation, depends where the ambulance is. And I made that decision to get him there. And they said to me, by getting him here, it saved his life. And he was in intensive care for about 3 weeks, 2-3 weeks. And during that time, they called us and they said to us, "Listen, the fluid from the aneurysm has leaked and it's got into one of his legs." And they said to us, two options. We either keep him as he is and potentially him not come back come out of this intensive coma, or we amputate his leg. So they amputated his left leg above knee amputation, and my mum and brother were both really emotional about it, and as was I, but I was a bit more level-headed than them. They said, he's not going to cope without his leg. And I said to them, listen, let's be logical about this. If we don't do this, he's not going to be with us anymore. No. If we do this, he is going to still be around and he will adjust.
Yeah.
And because as a family, we have always adjusted to our circumstances. And the hospital staff said, he's not surviving, prepare yourself for that. And I said, he is surviving because we've been through a lot as a family.
Yeah.
And I brought my mum and brother away to my way, round to my way of thinking, because I said, he's still going to be with us. If we don't do this, he's got no chance of recovery. So we made that decision to amputate his leg, and the first thing he said when he woke up was, I'm so grateful to still be here. And it's changed his view on everything.
I think it changes something like that anyway.
Yeah.
I know everything that you've been through.
Yeah.
But that's another level, isn't it?
Yeah. And that was when my addiction was at its worst.
Wow.
Because when I came back from university, I went back to living with my mum and dad. I've lived with them since then and haven't moved out. But I'd again gone from having to do... I didn't cook when I came back from university. I didn't cook very well at university. There were a time that with my cooking at university was one of the first times ever was I got the pasta strainer, and rather than putting the pasta strainer over the sink, I left it on the over the floor, and I wondered why all this hot water was going onto my feet, and I was thinking, how can I not do something so simple? But yeah, so I didn't cook when between that 2016 and 2022 period, and my dad used to do it all, and I did my own washing, but things like that. But again, I didn't have to be financially responsible because the only bill that I was paying was my phone bill. I was buying food occasionally, but I wasn't paying rent, anything like that. And going back to my dad and his story and the ruptured aneurysm, they said to us as a hospital, they said, let us tell him about his leg, because they're trained how to do it. And we said, yep, we agree, we'll let you do that. He woke up from his induced coma, and they didn't tell him. So he twisted round to his side, and he looked down and he said, oh, I haven't got a leg anymore. So he almost made a joke out of it. So, which again, it sort of brings it back to reality that nobody knows what's going to happen tomorrow. And I'm just so glad that he has adjusted as well as he has. He's still with us today. And
I presume you can cook.
I do a lot more cooking now. So the reason my addiction got a lot worse in that 2022 and 2023 period was because I was in all of this debt, and my dad used to pay for all of the shopping, and he then didn't pay for any of that. And me and my brother had to. My brother came down from Scotland that morning. So I told him, Dad's may not make it.
Yeah.
So he came down, and I was in hospital overnight and didn't sleep, and I was gambling and still watching series because I couldn't do anything else. He was being operated on, and even they were saying he may not make it. We've never seen a blood pressure this low that has made it through the surgery that he's gone through. And I said, he's going to make it. And they kept telling me that I was being a bit silly, but I said, we've been through a lot as a family, and they were just being realistic and honest. And because I worked in the financial services sector, my dad, obviously we weren't paying any of the bills. So we gave ourselves different tasks. One of my tasks was to contact each creditor and say, this is what's happening with Dad.
Yeah.
What can you do to support us? And I gave myself that responsibility because I knew how to use the system. I knew how to not use the system. I knew what to say to these creditors.
Yeah, you knew the words.
Whereas my brother he isn't good at talking to people like I am. And we contacted each creditor. They were all fantastic and everything. It's like the credit card that I had when I was gambling on that day, that 2023 day that I overcame my addiction. That creditor couldn't have been better to me, because they said, we're not going to apply interest, you're going to clear it, we're going to set up a payment plan with you to clear it with this period. And every creditor needs to be like that company.
Yeah.
Because you need to be offered hope when you're going through a recovery. You don't need to be told, we're going to increase your debt because you've had a gambling addiction. That's blaming someone for having it.
So you contacted them after. Sorry, I'm all over the place here.
No,
your dad is in hospital. He's had his operation. He's out. Blah blah blah. You've dealt with all of his creditors.
Yeah.
So when you faced your demon, and you in 2023, did you contact them via the debt helpline?
No, I contacted them myself.
And they were great.
I knew. I know of the debt helplines because I worked with them and I signposted people to them. The reason I didn't put people in touch was the reason I didn't contact them was because I said to myself, which not everyone can do, it wasn't an extreme amount of debt. £3,500 in the grand scheme of things isn't a lot of money.
Hang on a minute, it is if you haven't got it.
Yes, it is, but when I'm working with customers who were contacting me about debt advice, and I was giving debt advice. We don't give debt advice, we signpost and we have conversations with them. They're in debt of £10,000, £20,000 and they have payment plans with them. And these charities charge a fee, understandably. And I said to myself, you need to deal with it yourself because you're taking more accountability and responsibility.
So you did that? Okay.
I contacted them after I'd contacted GamCare, the bank that I had the debt with, and they couldn't have been better to me. They couldn't have been more understanding, and it's a credit to them as an organisation. I've had different experiences with different organisations, but they were good. But when it came to my dad's creditors in 2022, again, they were very understanding and very good. So that was when it got worse because I had to start paying for the food shopping, something like that, something as simple as that, which I should have already been doing. Yeah. But my dad was doing that each week, and we didn't have access.
Because he's the dad.
Yeah, because he didn't have access to any of the money that he had. So I was thinking to myself, what am I going to do? So I carried on spending on that credit card and carried on trying to claw back that money. To be fair, me and my brother did share it a little bit. So, but again, when I say we shared it, that was me being manipulative because I said, listen, I can't be expected to pay for it all. And the reason I can't be expected to pay for it wasn't because I didn't want to, because I physically couldn't, because I didn't have this money available to me. And we would share it amongst ourselves where we would both go out and pay for it. And again, I would pay for it on my credit card. So it was a revolving circle. Of course. And that's a problem when you're going through a gambling addiction. It's a revolving circle.
Do you know what it reminds me of? You know that advert on the telly where the lady's in the car at the park watching the kids on the swings and the roundabouts, and she's sitting there and it's all life's going on. Yeah. Have you ever seen that?
No.
And the woman's just sat there and life is going on, but she's so heavily involved in what's going on within her. She can't see outside of that.
And that's a problem with every addiction.
Yeah.
But the problem with a gambling addiction is you hide it. And I did a podcast recently and they said, actually, you're very clever because you have a gambling addiction, because you need to be thinking steps ahead.
You are, yeah.
You need to be
ahead.
and I don't see myself as being very clever at all, but you need to be thinking steps ahead. And what are you going to do if you win the money? What are you going to be doing if you lose the money? If you lose the money, you're going to be putting your next bet down. If you win the money, you're then thinking, who am I going to bet on now? How can I make more money quicker?
Yeah.
And I wasn't addicted to the National Lottery when I started between 16 and 19, but by the end of my addiction, I was. I wasn't addicted to the things you do weekly. I was addicted to their scratch cards because I was thinking to myself, how can I get money quickly? And that was a way to get money quickly for me. And it was all about how quickly I could get money and how quickly I could turn it around, rather than doing things for the long run.
I get it.
I think the biggest bet that I ever put down was £2,000.
Wow.
And that's what I'd won, but that was enough money to clear my debt. But I said, let's give yourself the extra money. And that was towards the end as well. And that was on a 1 to 10 shot. So I would have won maybe £20 off that, but I put £2,000 down on it.
God.
And I said to myself,
Oh.
and it was heartbreaking to lose that amount of money, because it could have changed my life. But I don't regret it, because I wasn't ready to overcome my addiction. The day I was ready to overcome my addiction was because I got caught out.
Of course.
And because I said to myself, what do you need to do? And this is what I need to do.
So you were there at your crossroads. It's your left or right.
Yeah.
You've chosen right.
I chose the right path.
Yeah. So then so that's been 3 years ago. And I know that 3 years, 4 days and a bit. So you've also changed yourself as well, haven't you?
I have. So in the first 2 years, so the hardest thing for me wasn't overcoming my gambling addiction. It was losing weight. So
Right, okay.
2 years, and the reason that it was losing weight was because losing weight takes time. Overcoming a gambling addiction, all I needed was 6 sessions of therapy to say, just disassociate it. All I had to do was disassociate sport and gambling.
Do you mind if I explore the 6 sessions of gambling? Because we don't know who's watching this. Sorry, therapy.
Yeah.
Sorry. We don't know who's watching this, Paul. You don't know if somebody's going through it, hiding it. There will be somebody hiding it.
Yeah.
So, and the thought of talking to somebody is a scary prospect. So, without trying to give too much away, but I really do want you to talk about what the hell happens in those sessions. Just what happened. Do you go in a room and they get you to lie down, and what happens?
So I think the association with therapy is you go there and you sit there or you lie there and
you cry.
have a conversation. Sometimes you do cry, and again, it's not a weakness. The strongest thing you could do is go to your first therapy session, because that shows that you are willing to move forwards.
Is it one-to-one or in a group?
So you can have different types of therapy. So this one, what I had was CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy. It's probably the most common type of therapy. And this one was it was after COVID. So it was a Zoom meeting with a lady who worked for Break Even, and they do such incredible work. Every therapist who works for a charity, in my opinion, does incredible work with every therapist. Does incredible work because they take on other people's problems, whereas everyone around everyone in the world has their own problems.
Of course.
What therapists do is they take on other people's and they talk them through different things that they can do. And
so just say hypothetically I'm there and I've got an addiction and somebody says, do this cognitive behaviour therapy. So I'm there looking at a screen.
no, it wasn't looking at a screen.
What happened then?
It was basically a conversation like we're having at the moment, and it isn't as daunting as you might think it is.
Because that's what I'm trying to get over, is that it's not as daunting as you think.
They're not going to press you for answers. They're going to let you share as much as you want to share with them. They're not going to make you talk about anything. But she was there, so I hadn't thought of disassociating sport and gambling because I'd done it for just over 10 years. It was my daily routine that I was doing every day, and with ADHD and being autistic, I had to have that daily routine. So the therapist was incredibly relaxed about everything, and she made me feel very welcome in the sessions, which is important for a therapist to do, to build that rapport. And I think the first session that we ever had was us just talking about what my life is and what I want to gain from the sessions. So the standard therapy is that you normally get offered about 6 sessions, and that's what my employee assistance program could have offered me, but they chose not to, because and it was a choice. I don't name and shame. I'm not going to blame them, because the problem with employee assistance programs are they're not designed to be
to help
intensive therapy. They're designed to signpost you, but they didn't signpost me until a few days after. And I could have taken my life in those few days. And GamCare, because they're the leading national organisation for gambling helpline, they didn't need to signpost me. They put me in touch with my local organisation. And there's different types of organisations that do different things. So in the gambling world and therapy world, an organisation like Break Even will offer cognitive behavioural therapy. There are organisations in Wales that will offer you a residential treatment. I don't know much about them. There are organisations like Epic Restart Foundation who offer, again, a residential retreat in England, and
there's lots of different places people can go.
Is one size doesn't fit all. And
but that worked for you.
So many different organisations that can offer support, and just because one organisation doesn't work for you doesn't mean that the next organisation won't. It's about finding the right person for you and finding the right therapy for you, because therapy works for everyone. It's just not the same therapy works for everyone.
Yeah, I get that. Okay, I think I've explored your gambling.
Yeah.
So then, can we do your weight? So you've obviously said about you found it harder to lose weight than give up your gambling, which is...
And that's because it took longer for me to do it. And it wasn't just... With my gambling, as soon as I'd gone into recovery, I stopped gambling. I still have thoughts about gambling, and I still think about what could happen if I put down my next bet. But the difference now is I'm not acting on my impulses. And it's important for anyone that's watching this to realise that if you go into recovery, you're not going to completely forget about gambling, because it's probably been a long time that you've been gambling for. Not always. And people can gamble safely, and I'm an advocate of people gambling safely, but I can't.
No.
And I don't want.
You're an all or nothing, aren't you?
I don't want to put myself in a situation where I put down another bet and think to myself, I've won. Because if I win that money, what am I going to do with it? I don't want to ask myself that question. And I don't need to ask myself that question. I'm not doing it anymore. And also, the final part about gambling is relapse. And if you do relapse, there are different stages to gambling and different stages. So the second step for me, stage 1 is you don't want to overcome your addiction. Stage 2 is, you know, you've got an addiction, you just don't know what to do about it. So if you relapse once you've been into recovery, you go into stage 2 because you know you've got the addiction. And if you want to continue overcoming it, what you need to do is put in place something to stop you from doing it again. There's always a reason that you might gamble. It could be a stress factor. It could be something to do with stress. And once you've taken that, once you've put in place something to stop yourself from doing it again, then that is all you can do. And I don't want to gamble again and challenge myself, because I never want my life to go back to where it was before. But the reason my weight loss was harder was because weight and the amount of weight I lost takes place over a long period.
How much weight did you lose?
So in 2 years, I lost 55 kilos.
God,
and I lost 55 kilos naturally, not through the different diets that are available, Herbalife, things like that. My dad advocates for Herbalife, and I've tried it, but it didn't work for me.
No.
And what worked for me was simply changing what I ate and not stopping myself from having treats. Because if you go onto one of these diets that are available, and I don't care how someone loses weight, the most important thing to me is that person has lost
they'll
weight.
lose it,
They've lost weight. Comes back to therapy. I don't care how someone goes into recovery. What I care about is that they get the support which they need to have for them. And it's the same with weight. So you can do any of the available diets if you're losing the weight. That's what matters to me. And it took 2 years for me to lose that 55 kilos. And it was incredibly difficult and I had to be incredibly determined to do it as well. So, and that's why I say it was harder, because my mindset had to be, I'm going to the gym. So I was going to the gym 7 days a week when I was at my best through losing weight. And it wasn't a straight road. I didn't go and lose weight consistently for that 2-year period. I was losing weight at different points. And so for about the first 6 months, I was doing it on my own with no support from anyone. And then apart from the support of my friends and family telling me to keep going and doing it for myself. So that was probably one of the first times I'd actually started doing something for myself. And I'd started actually wanting to change my life, because I'm the only person that can change my life. And I can't change someone else's life. I don't want to change someone else's life. And a friend of mine often says to me, he says, "You inspire me." So I say to him, "That's very kind of you, but I don't inspire you." I'm very honest with him. I say, I don't inspire you because you are still gambling, and you still tell me that you want to lose weight, and you've told me that you're not losing weight. And I've said, I want to achieve what you have. He says, I want to achieve what you have. And I say to him, I don't want you to achieve that, because that was my goal. That's not your goal. I want you to achieve what you've put in your head and what you want to overcome. Because if he goes away and loses 30 kilos in that 2 years, let's just say as an example, he would then come back and say, I haven't lost what you have. And I would say to him, I don't want you to. I don't want anyone to achieve I don't want anyone to talk about the same story that I have, because it's my story. It's like everyone in the recovery space has their own incredible story. I don't care if they share it in front of cameras like I am, or I don't care if they share it just with their family. What matters to me is, what is their recovery? My recovery is doing talks like this to encourage one person, because with all the social media stuff that I do, I posted on social media for that first 2-year period, and then I started doing public speaking with organisations like Gamble Aware, and that first 2 years was people saying, you've got an incredible story, let's share it. And I said, oh, I don't have an incredible story, it's just a story at the end of the day. And up until last year, so 2025, I wasn't doing any public speaking work, but now I do these things, podcasts. I'm very grateful for the opportunities to do them, and also the organisations I work with. But the most rewarding thing that's come out of this isn't doing talks like this, it's doing, when I've done my social media posts, I've had one gambler who I knew when I was at university, she was at college, she reached out to me and said, I've got a gambling addiction. And I said to her, she said, I'm gambling X amount of money each week. And I said, I don't care how much you spend. I want you to get support, and I want you to work with me. And I made her feel validated, valued, and made sure that, because that's what it comes down to. When you have an addiction, you feel lonely. And you feel, I was gambling because I was lonely and bored. Yeah. And you feel on your own. And she said to me, I put her in touch with organisations. She reached out to them. For one reason or another, she didn't get the help through them. But she said to me, I check up on her, and she said, I don't gamble anymore. And it's because you made me feel validated. And that is the biggest compliment someone could ever offer me, rather than doing what I'm doing here.
I think that what I've realised when I'm obviously doing these and talking to people, there are so many people that are lonely, that feel as though they're on their own, and they don't have whatever, all walks of life. You can be in a crowd, you can be that person, the life and soul of the party, but so lonely. And I think the men's...
I was that person.
Well, the men's, I spoke off camera about, in fact, I'm an estate agent, ex-estate agent, whatever, but the guy that is part of Digital Sparks, where I'm filming this, a boys club, sorry, not men's club, boys club, where people can just talk. And I think it is so, so important. And I'm just so grateful that you reached out to me and would come on here, because that's one heck of a story, isn't it? I know it's your story, but from here on in, what's your life like now, Paul?
Men's mental health is so important, and the reason it's important is because men can learn a lot from women when it comes to mental health, because women talk to each other. Men don't talk to each other. Men see it as a weakness, and by talking, you are having the hardest conversation, but once you've done that conversation, it's a weight off your shoulders. As I said, with what I just said about my recovery, me having that first conversation was the hardest thing for me, but it's the most rewarding thing that I've ever done going into recovery.
So if anybody wants to reach out to you, can they?
Yes, absolutely. So I've had people reach out to me through LinkedIn, through Facebook, Instagram. So my Instagram is Nashi5293. That's what I post most on, which is N for November, ASHI5293. And if anyone ever feels alone, then please do reach out to me, because you're not alone. And I would hate for anyone to commit suicide because of a gambling addiction, or for any addiction, to be honest, or to feel like they're not on their own when they're not, when there are more people struggling than they think.
Thank you, Paul. I'm very humble. You don't hear me say that often, but I'm quite humbled by that. Yeah, I am. No, I'm not exhausted. No, because I think that is such a big topic. that affects so many people
It's becoming bigger.
and I think the sad part is that gambling, that sport gambling, is huge, and people, it's just silently going along, isn't it?
Yeah, it's becoming more of a conversation. But
Yeah.
you think recently they are stopping fast food adverts for obesity.
Yeah.
Why can't they stop gambling? They don't advertise alcohol, smoking, things like
Yeah.
that. Maybe they need to take it a bit more seriously than they are. But the NHS are taking over the gambling and the support that's available. So I'm hoping that means that it's started to be treated as a public health issue, because
Yeah.
it is a public health issue, sadly. And yeah,
Thank you. Thank you very much, Paul.
thank you.
Oh. If you've been affected by anything in this podcast and you'd like to reach out to Paul, please contact me. If you haven't got the Nashi or the Instagram handles, I will gladly pass the details on. And thank you for listening.